way south, way south or way north, like thousands of miles. It's not that kind of thing. It's more of a migrational shift, like the robins do. Robins are with us year round as well. Um, but the ones that nest here probably move out of the area and others move in. So it also, if you don't know, bluebirds and robins are both thrushes. They're related. So they're the same family basically. So I came up with this birth of a bluebirder. It's really about me, why, how I got into this, why I got into this, and it'll kind of explain itself as I go along. But there it is. Birth of a bluebird, and that's looks. I don't know if that I looked like that as a baby, but I sometimes I think I might have been hatched because I've been into birds for a long, long time. I love birds. I'm very connected to them. So it's nice to think that maybe I actually was hatched, but I don't think I was. Anyway, I found this. I said, I got to put this up, this slide. So anyway, I'm a singer too. And so I thought that we do a kind of a sing along with Mitch thing, but Mitch isn't here, so it'll be a sing along with Tom. The words are there, and here comes the music, and I'll sing, and you can all sing along with me. And of course, the reason why I picked this song is because Bluebirds is in it, so we're going to do that now. There we go. Bluebirds smiling at me, and nothing but blue sky. Do I see bluebird singing a song, and nothing but bluebird all day long. I never saw the sun shining so bright, never saw things going so right. Noticing the days hurrying by, when you're in love, my honey, fly those blue days.
Think so.
All of them gone, nothing but blue skies from now on. And fade out. Hey guys, that's my band in the background there. So what got me into birding? So, we don't, it wasn't bluebirds. I don't think I ever saw bluebird when I got into it. I was in my 20s, probably about 24, 25 years old. And I was out with my sister who just started getting into birding a little bit. And she had binoculars and a bird book. And we were over near our house in this woods, and we're walking along a trail as in the winter. And this bird popped out, this bird right here, the fox sparrow. And we said, "Oh, let's look at that one. That's kind of cool looking." And she had her golden guide, and she opened it up, and the golden guide is birds of North America. So you got a lot of sparrows in there. So it's looking through the page, and one after the other after the other. And finally, we came upon this fox sparrow, and we identified it as it. And I thought, well, this is cool. So you see the bird, use your binoculars, you have your book, you identify it, you mark it off as something that you've seen, and then you go on from there. And I thought, well, this would be a cool thing to get into. And this is the bird I attribute to the fox sparrow, attributing this bird to getting me into birding because that was the first bird I identified. I mean, I knew what other birds were, blue jays and robins, but this is the first one I identified on a kind of a birding trip or a bird walk. And so it's a beautiful bird. It's our biggest sparrow, and just a really nice bird. I had one in my backyard. I live in Riverhead now, and I had one in my backyard a while back. And it's always every time I see this bird, I think of you. Hey, you're the guy who started me out. And those are the tools of a beginner. And those are the real binoculars that I had. Not exactly the binoculars, but those are the binoculars that somebody bought me for Christmas or birthday or something. Sears binoculars, 7x35s, and of course the Golden Guide, which most people started out with. I think I paid 4.90, or whoever bought it paid like $4.95 for it, and that's what they were going for back then. And once I got my own binoculars and the book, I started out on my own, and I started ticking these birds off in the book and finding this one and that one, and just really getting into it. It became a real passion real quick until I started going out to the shore and trying to do shore birds. Yeah, I almost quit because I'm looking at this kind of scene and I'm going, I don't know, they're all brown. They all have long beaks. They all look so similar, long legs, all standing around. And I remember taking the book and throwing it in the sand. I still don't have a lot of patience for some things. And I said, I can't do this. This is ridiculous. So I got away from the beach. I said, just don't go to the beach and try to figure out these birds. Go someplace else. So I stuck to the woods and fields and things like that. I really got into it, like I said, and ultimately got another guy, the Peterson guide, and started using that because that's birds of the eastern United States. Makes it a little bit easier to figure out what you're looking at. You have this look at Western species as well. So I almost quit. And that was the only time I almost quit. And after that, I stuck with it. I never really stopped. My first contact with, as far as bluebirds go, and really a good friend of mine is Julie Zickafus. You might know her. She's an artist, a writer, blogger, lives in Ohio, and she used to live in Connecticut. That's where I met her. She was the first person the Nature Conservancy hired to do the least tern and piping plover recovery program. The Nature Conservancy decided to get in the business of protecting these species of birds, beach nesting birds that needed help. So she was the very first one to be doing that as director of that program. And I heard about it from somebody else, and I decided to volunteer for it. I kind of quit my 9 to 5 job. I was a musician at the time and trying to get my real estate license. So I had time. So I was out almost daily looking for piping plovers, especially trying to find their nests and then letting Julie know, yeah, I got a nest Short Beach or Stratford, Connecticut, or a nest here and there. Then she would come out, make sure that there was a nest there. But back then, there were no fencing put up, there was no exclosures. All we had is signage, and so signs would be that birds are nesting. But piping plovers at least turns nest on the sand, right under people's feet. People walk dogs. I mean, there's all kinds of problems. But Julie had a bluebird trail in Salem, Connecticut, and I went out with her one time, and I was visiting her, and we went out and monitored the boxes. And I said, "Wow, this is really cool. You get to look in there and you see the babies and the eggs." It was just fascinating, and so I carried that with me. I didn't start a bluebird trail for many years after that, but I carried that experience with me. And Julie, like I said, she's a good friend of mine. I still stay in contact with her on Facebook, and we text every now and then. And she's led an amazing life. Bird Watchers Digest, she contributes to that. Her ex or former husband, who had passed away, was the editor. So anyway, Julie got me going, and she's also a wildlife rehabilitator. I think that's Jemima. I think that Blue Jay's name is Jemima. She wrote a book on that, to bringing that bird from as a chick to releasing, and her life with that bird. She wrote a whole book on it. So Hampshire Farm on Shelter Island. Because what happened was I went to school um, in California. So I was 36 years old. So that was 1990. When I got back in 94, I started working at Mashonack Preserve, which is on Shelter Island. And a couple of years after I arrived on Shelter Island, I think it was 96, 97, I noticed Hampshire Farm, which this isn't Hampshire Farm. I couldn't find a picture, so I just put this out. But Hampshire Farm was like a horse farm on Shelter Island. And I noticed these boxes were put up. And I said, well, I bet those are probably bluebird boxes. And so I looked into it. I looked at them. They were in disrepair. Um, didn't really know much about. I knew that probably sparrows were nesting in them because I saw them flying around there. And I said, "Oh, if there's any bluebirds here." Then I checked, found out that the Shelter Island School had a teacher that put those boxes in, and it was kind of a school project. But he had kind of left it, which typically happens with bluebird trails. A lot of times they get forgotten about. And so I asked him. I said, "Would you mind if I started, picked up where you left off?" And he said, "Yeah, go right ahead." So I did. I went and I cleaned them all out and got them ready for this nesting season. And as the nesting season progressed, I got nothing but house sparrows. And you can imagine why, since it's a horse farm, right? and all the oats and groats or whatever these horses eat. And so they're in the barns eating that stuff and nesting in the barns and flying around and using these boxes. So nothing but house sparrows were in these boxes. So I started looking into what do I do about these house sparrows. So somebody gave me a trap, and it's that who I guess Hoover trap on the left side. I used one of those, and I didn't have the heart in my heart to kill anything, especially an adult bird or baby birds. So I would clean the nest out and the eggs, and of course they'd start building right away. So I figured, well, I got to get rid of the male. So I actually trapped the bird. This Hoover trap gets mounted on the inside, and when they go through the hole, that little metal thing, they land on that, and that closes that little orange or red drops down, and they can't get out. So I set the trap. I sat in my truck and I waited for the bird to go in. I saw it got caught, and I actually took the whole nest box off of the pole, put it in my car, and drove it to the Hamptons. And I let the bird go over there. I figured it's a better life for the bird. You know, they got the Hamptons, got the stargazing and all that. So anyway, that's what I did. I only did it one time. It was kind of a lot to do, kind of crazy, really, when you think about it. But who knows if that bird ever came back or not. So anyway, I start getting into it, and I start looking into who can help me with this because I know a little bit about it. And I've read a little bit about it, but with Julie, I just went out that one time with her, so I got help from different people. Marty Wins, he's the guy sitting there on the bench. He was the president of the Crusoe's Found. I think he still is the president of the Crusoe's Foundation, and the Crusoe's Foundation was a real wealthy guy was running that whole thing, and he had a lot of money. I think he had something to do with the fax machine, like inventing it or something like that. So he had a lot of dough, and he used a lot of the money towards arts and conservation. So so Marty Wenz, he helped me with some of the boxes. He gave me some boxes. He donated them to me. And then the guy on the other side, the long hair there, John Patente, he's a dentist, but also a conservationist. And he was really into trying to design a bluebird box or a nest box that sparrows didn't like. So he was kind of fooling around with different designs and things like that. And he got a hold of me, or I got a hold of him. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. And he brought some of his boxes out to Hampshire Farm. And he said, let's try them out. So we did. There's one right there at the top is open. And it's got a screen on it. And you wonder, oh boy, that's kind of crazy because the rain can get in and this and that. And by the way, that box on a tree, never do that. That's I don't know who put that on there. You don't want on a tree. It's too easy for a squirrel or a raccoon or any kind of predator to get up in there. So, but anyway, the top was open, and apparently sparrows didn't like the top being open. But bluebirds or tree swallows would nest in a box that had a top open. But you can see the problem with that, with weather. If it gets really, really wet, if the female or male is not on the nest, the eggs get wet, it gets cold, and then the that'll fail. So that doesn't work. But we did use them for a little bit. We used them at Meshamic Preserve, which I'll get into as well, and ultimately phased them out. John also was interested in purple martin houses, trying to get them so that starlings wouldn't use them. So he designed this whole big wooden, huge thing, and we put the 4x4 in, and it was one of these deals where you could raise it and lower it, so you could monitor, clean out whatever you had to clean out if the starlings got in or what have you. And Doc Ryan, it was his property. He lived on Shelter Island, and he had some boxes up already, and he had purple martins on his property. So we asked him if we could put up another one, this wooden one, and he said, "Sure, go right ahead." And there again, they used it a little bit. It wasn't a particular, but John he's just kind of just looking into things and trying different things. He was interested, being a dentist and also an accomplished concert pianist. Dude, this guy was one of the most accomplished people I've ever met. He had his own business called Nature America or American Nature, something like that. And it was basically trying to teach people or trying to promote people letting their lawns go back to nature with native grasses and things like that. So he was a really interesting guy. I think we had him for North Fork Audubon a couple of years ago doing a program, and I hadn't seen him for years, so it was really great to see him. Real great guy. And Marty Wentz, by the way, is also an excellent guy. Does a lot of work with piping plovers and least terns, and he's just too great. And Marty taught me how to monitor boxes, and he was one of these guys who was super or is still one of the super anal about how to do it. And so every little possible thing you could think of, um, how to do it, what not to do, and what to do, he covered it with me, and he really taught me well. So anyway, I was working at Meshamic Preserve all this time, and started that mover trail over at Hampshire Farm, and also not just Hampshire Farm, but I also I started my own business called Birdworks, and I was selling birds feed and doing a lot of stuff like anything related to birds feeders and things like that, and also wanting to extend or expand the Bluebird Trail. So I got interviewed by the Shelter Island Reporter person, and they put an article in the paper. And I said anybody that thinks they have the right habitat for nests for bluebirds or tree swallows, contact me. And several people did. And when they did, I would go and I put up bluebird boxes and see what we could get there. So it was a lot of fun. And the trail, um, Hampshire Farm, some private residents, and also Sylvester Manor. If you're familiar with Silverado, and all had a lot of boxes there. And unfortunately, things have changed there, and they took all those boxes out. So really, there's no more bluebirds because I filter Island per se. But if it's not a preserve, there is. I'll go into the story of that. I just love that. So anyway, their boxes were put up, and this isn't one of them. This is just a thing. Um, Boxes were put up in the fields there. There was quite a few acres of fields, but they weren't done right. They were put up on the wood edge. They had no predator guards on them. You had, squirrels chewing them, tops popped off the raccoons. The screws weren't even long enough to hold the tops on. They could be ripped off by raccoons. You see here, and so they were in bad shape. And people would ask me. I was the visitor center coordinator there, and people would come back for the walks, and they go, "Well, what nests in those boxes?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I know they're put up for bluebirds and tree swallows." I said, "But I don't know what nests there, and nobody monitors them." So I said, we got to do something about that. So I approached Mike Laspia, who was the director, and I said, I want to do something with these boxes. People ask me all the time. They should be done differently, and they should be monitored. So he said, okay, so I wrote a whole bunch of protocol and got volunteers together, and we changed things up. Oh yeah, the wrens too. Like I was telling you, they're very close to the wood edge. If you put these nest boxes, too close to the wood edge or shrubby areas, the wrens will use them. And you could almost call a wren a predator, because what they can do is they can actually go in and pierce the eggs of tree swallows or bluebirds, or remove the eggs. Another thing they'll do too is they'll go around to all the different nest boxes, and the male will fill them up with sticks. They're called dummy nests. And then the female will come along. He'll sing on tops of these boxes. Then the female will come along, and she'll decide, oh yeah, let's choose this one. And then she'll get some grasses in line, and they'll use that one. But now you've got all these boxes full of sticks that can't be used by anybody. So they're kind of a pain in the neck, but they are protected under the Migration and the Bird Act. So you can't mess with them. I think it's okay to if you want, you can take the nest out, but once there's eggs in there, you have to leave those alone by law. So we went ahead and we put the boxes where they belong, out towards the middle of the fields, away from the edges, and we paired the boxes up. That's always a good thing to do in case you happen to have tree swallows nesting in one, or usually the bluebirds will nest first. So the bluebirds will come, and they're thinking about they're finding nest sites now and boxes now, and by the end of March they'll pretty much be ready to go, and in early April they'll start laying eggs. and they'll do it twice. They'll do a brood in April, late mid-April, and then again in June usually. So if you had just one box there and the bluebirds were in there and in the middle of their nesting process, then all of a sudden the bluebirds come back. Now you got fights, and the tree swallows want to use them, and the bluebirds don't want them to use them, so they're fighting over it. And some really aggressive tree swallows could kind of screw up the whole nesting cycle for the bluebirds. So what you want to do is you want to pair them up. So you put one side by side, and then a lot of times what will happen is the bluebirds will use one, and the tree swallows will use the other one. That's the ultimate. That's what you want to see. What you don't want to see are boxes with tree swallows in both, because tree swallows are territorial. But if you've got them nesting side by side in their genetics, their young are going to be also tolerant of nesting side by side. So what could happen is that if you have a bluebird trail in it, that's what you're trying to propagate, and then you've got all these tree swallows that are they're not all that territorial. You're going to get a heck of a lot more tree swallows than bluebirds. And so I always felt that make sure that you don't let tree swallows nest side by side. If the bluebirds aren't using one of the boxes, I like to say, well, once the tree swallows are in, block off the other one until the bluebirds are done with their first brood, first brood, and then they're going to re-nest. Then you can take it off at that point. The tree swallows will already be into their nesting cycle. There'll be no tree swallows looking to nest at that point. So let the bluebirds start in that box. So that's just a thing that I came up with, and I think it would work. No, back to the wrong one here. Let's go the other way. Let's go this. Oh, here we go. I just get a kick out of these different ways to the slide transitions. So we get a bunch of volunteers in the Shamik, and we put in these nice 4x4 posts. I think we got money from the Crusoe's Foundation. They donated some money for this. And we got the boxes. There's all different styles. It's a Peterson box here, but there's all different styles. And you can see they're on 4x4 posts with Irva 4x4 predator guards. That is the ultimate setup. The predator guard is a cylindrical guard that is on some kind of a bracket, and they move around on there, and they're impossible for anything to climb up. They fit tight on the 4x4, so no mice can get in, no snakes can get in, nothing can climb up there. And if they're high enough off the ground, which they should be, at least about 6 feet, 5.5, 6 feet at least, about eye level or a little more, nothing's getting in there. So that is the ultimate perfect, but it's expensive. There's cheaper ways to do it. But if you got the dough and you only have a few boxes, that's what I would suggest you do. You get an Irva, CERVA predator guard on a 4x4 post, an 8-foot post, put it 2 feet in the ground, and then get yourself whatever kind of box you want. Just make sure that it's okayed by the NABS, North American Bluebird Society. And there's plans for that you can do that. How you can make your own, or how big the box should be, and also how big the entrance should be. It should be an inch and a half. And so the predators. So the volunteers, you can see here they're monitoring them. They're keeping track once a week, keep track of what's in there. There's a whole bunch of protocol for that, as far as when first egg is laid, when the clutch is complete, when the fledge date is going to be, and when you shouldn't open the box. You shouldn't open the box about 5 days or so before fledging, because if you know the birds are going to fledge in a couple of days or 3 days, all you got to do is walk up to the box or something, just listen, make sure they're still in there, and then leave them alone. Because if you open the box and they fledge prematurely and can't quite fly, they're going to end up on the ground, and the predators will get them. Even if you take them off the ground and stick them back in the box, they'll jump right out again. This is what they do. It's innate. Once they left the box, they don't go back in there. Throw that away. Some more volunteers. We had a lot of volunteers that we got involved in this. Um, just people got really into it, and this is another box. You can see how high that is. Nothing's jumping up there. Okay, so I was running the program. I started the Bluebird Trail, and I did it for a couple of years, maybe 1 year, I don't even remember. And then Mike Laspia, he said, "You prefer me do other things?" Because I want that Bluebird thing run volunteers, strictly volunteers. So I said, okay, well, Bill Zinnick had already volunteered to help us put the boxes in and monitor and stuff like that. And so I approached Bill. A lot of people probably know Bill. He used to be a veterinarian on the North Fork. He's now in North Carolina. He moved down there, retired. But he took the position. He took the volunteer position and just ran with it. He made it into a really big thing. Would go out in a truck. He would take several people with him so they could experience it. He expanded the amount of boxes at any place he could find, a place on the preserve that would be far enough apart. You want to keep them about 100 yards apart, the pairs of the box or the pair of boxes, so that you can pretty much just get bluebirds. That's what they need, at least 100 yards apart. So we made sure we did that, and like I said, he expanded it quite a bit. He really did an amazing job with it. And there he is with two new boxes. As far as putting them up with the 4x4s in the year of a post, very expensive, and he was doing this all on his own. He wasn't asking for money from the Nature Conservancy or anything, so he was doing it with sheet metal and stuff like that, which works fine. It looked the earth looks better. It's the same color as the grasses. It just blends in beautifully. This works too. It doesn't look as good, and it doesn't last as long, but it definitely works. And it's always nice to look at brand new boxes and see that they've been put up. And look at the success that over those 20 years, the total number of bluebirds fledged. Oh, this thing's on the way. I can't see. I don't know if you can see it. But it's like well, God, 800 and something, and then the swallows fledged is like a lot. How do I get rid of that thing? Minimize it. 853 bluebirds fledged over that 20-year period, and then the tree swallows 1850. That's amazing, right? Just incredible. So, going from this, just taking these boxes that I saw in a couple of fields and getting some bluebirds to nest there, to go to that is just amazing. And this is the habitat they like. And I put the word ecotone. I learned that a long time ago. An ecotone basically is just an edge, the edge effect. So bluebirds like the edges. They like the woods to go into. Sometimes they'll even nest in the woods. They don't have to be nesting out in the middle of a field, but they basically will do all their foraging or hunting, or whatever you want to call it, in open fields. A lot of times with the shorter grasses, they can see the insects. So they kind of act like a hawk almost, or an owl, even more so. They'll look down, watch the insect, then drop down on it, and then grab that bug, and then either eat it themselves or take it to their young. So that's the kind of habitat you need. You don't have to have, I don't know how many acres this is North Field at the Neshamik Preserve. It's a huge field, but just an acre, a half acre of open land is enough. Put up a box, put it in the right place, put a predator guard on it. You too can get bluebirds or tree swallows at least. And of course, you have to have food for them. Eastern red cedar is something they'll eat. That'll attract other birds too, like waxwings. I've seen well, the different woodpeckers will eat them. Flickers like eastern red cedar. You see them sometimes perched on top of the cedar eating the berries. It's funny. You think of a woodpecker and they eat insects, but and they're on trees all the time. But the flicker is our largest. Will often eat ants on the ground and grubs and things like that. It spends more time on the ground than the trees. Winter berries, another favorite food of bluebirds, and the yellow-rumped warblers also will overwinter with the bluebirds and eat the similar food. So if you have this open areas like this with some foods for them, they'll be there eating that stuff. They'll subsist on that stuff. And sumac, they have this is a picture of wing sumac. There's also smooth sumac. That seems to be one of the favorites of bluebirds. Oftentimes, when I went out into the fields at Mishamik, I would look at the sumac stands, and that's where the bluebirds would be eating the sumac. So that's a real important food for them if you have that growing in your yard, or if you let it grow. That's why I say that letting our yards be, if you have the property and let a part of it go back to the wild, or plant some of these native plants in there, it's such a huge help to the wildlife, and then also for you, because you're connected to that. Like I was talking about, some of you might have heard me talking about earthing. It's being connected to the earth and your bare feet, and just being more connected. Well, if you have these things out there, just looking at it and watching wildlife connects you, and we all need to be more connected to the earth. And bayberry is another one that's a big food for a lot of the winter birds. I know that tree swallows love bayberry. You'll often see these huge flocks of them flying around. All of a sudden, they'll just land onto all these on this stand of northern bayberry and eat that stuff up before they migrate. There's a lot of waxy fat in bayberry, so they'll fill up on that before they take off. And an Asiatic bittersweet, which is a introduced non-native plant, but it does get eaten by the birds. So you definitely, you don't necessarily want the stuff growing in your yard, or your yard edge, because it will take over. It will strangle trees out, even knock them down. It'll climb it. It'll shade the tree out, and then the weight of it will actually pull the tree down. And if you've ever seen Asiatic bittersweet, some of the vines are absolutely huge. They look like trees themselves. And this is a bird. I think this is public enemy number one, is the house sparrow. Luckily, at Neshamik Preserve, we never had, believe it or not, never had a house sparrow try to nest in any of the boxes in all the years that I was there, and Bill never reported one. So, luckily, we were Neshamik is down. It's pretty isolated from houses and things like that, where house sparrows like to be, in businesses and things. No McDonald's for the French fries there. So we really never got them. They never showed up there. As a matter of fact, at the visitor center, which you would think there'd be some there, occasionally one would show up there at Mishamik, but the manor house and all the fields and things like that at Mishamik are way out there, way out on the preserve. So they never showed up. So we didn't have to worry about that. Mainly, the boxes were all put in good places, deep in the middle of the fields, not near the wood edge. So house wrens were never really much of a problem, occasionally here and there. And if they were, we would just cut back some of the stuff that was growing around those boxes, just cut it back. And that would pretty much take care of the wrens. They do like to skulk around, and they like to have cover. And they don't have cover, they're not going to come around. Mm. And so now lately, I've been working with Pete Van Hensbrook, who used to be a volunteer at the Film for a lot of different things, photography and Bluebird projects and stuff like that. And when Bill Zidek left Long Island, he had set up a trail over at the 4-H camp, the Dorothy P. Flint 4-H camp on the North Road, just outside of Riverhead. And so Pete started doing it there. I think he's been there now 14 years doing it. And I started helping him about 3 or 4 years ago. So I go out with him, and we monitor the boxes. I think there's like 20 boxes or something like that there. And mostly he gets tree swallows, but a lot of sparrows. So most of the work while we're doing it is throwing out the nest and eggs of tree sparrows. But ultimately, the swallows will get in there, and he's only had bluebirds a couple of times, I think. But for the most part, um, tree swallows, and they're native species, and they're good. Like the tree sparrow is, I mean, the house sparrow is not native, not protected. The starling, European starling, also is not protected by the Migration Bird Act. So you can do whatever you want with if you so inclined. I don't like killing anything that's alive, so I just throw the eggs out, throw the nest out, and that's what we do there. And we do get some tree swallows. Here's Pete, got him posing. He rarely smiles for a picture, so there I got him to smile, or what I did to get him to do that, but he finally did. And like I said, he's been there a long time. And I actually nominated him for an award from the New York State Bluebird Society a couple of years ago, and he won for his work there at the 4-H camp. And so that's nice. And the plaque they give you there, it's amazing. It's beautiful wood with the nice brass and really nice. So he's thrilled to get it. That's me digging holes there. Pete's a little older than me, but I'm catching up. So I was digging a hole for a 4x4 post. You see those horses there, close to us. One of the problems with that particular area is the horse. You know, horses like to rub and scratch their butts usually. Well, they do that. They lean on these things, and sometimes they knock them over. So we put we're thinking of moving them this year because it happened last year that one got knocked over. I think Reds were in there, so it wasn't a big deal. But I think we're going to change that and move them to a different place. Those are all polo ponies because apparently they do polo on the field there. These people that do that kind of thing. So this that's one of the things that 4-H lets them lease that land to do that. And like any proper slideshow, you end with the sunset. They have nothing to do with birds, but it just looks pretty. And and I don't know where that is. Probably not even the North Fork. It kind of looks like I found that I say it looks like North Fork could be the North Fork. And I think the boat there, actually, it is the North Fork. Now that I think about it, Peggy is there, and I think she was just jumping off into the water. I think it was winter. So anyway, so that's my show anyway. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be open for questions now.
Well, thank you, Tom. Oh, yes, we definitely have some questions. I know one, I think Mimi asked how far apart should the boxes be? And I remain confused to this day because you're talking about the Bluebird boxes need to be at least 100 yards apart. What about if you've got two boxes, one for the bluebirds and one for tree
Tree
swallows?
swallows, yeah, yeah. I don't think it's like Bill did a lot of experimenting on that as well, and so he actually mounted like a box on the front of a 4x4 and one on the back side, facing the other way. Just always looking to cut costs and the man, and the work to be done. You can put one 4x4 in two boxes, you don't have to worry about two. But I think for the most part, we had them maybe 6, 7, 8, 10 feet apart, something like that. I don't think it really matters, but probably like at least 10 feet apart would be good.
Okay. And then Eric asked, you keep mentioning bluebird trails. Does everybody know what that is exactly? Sorry, that was
Blue,
my parrot being
a
naughty.
bluebird trail.
Yeah, bluebird trails. I think you should explain what a bluebird trail is. Not
Yeah,
every-
well, a trail it can be on an acre or no, maybe let's say a couple of acres, 3 acres or something like that. As long as the boxes are 100 yards apart, you'll walk that. Or if you could have a vehicle that can get around there, that's you basically it's a trail. So you go to one or two boxes if you have them paired up, you check them, then you go to the next one, or next one to the next one. Or a trail can be all over Shelter Island. So I would drive to Hampshire Farm, then I drive to this guy's house who had a couple put up there, and then I'd go over to Sylvester Manor. So it's basically a trail in that you're traveling it either by foot or by car. And then like the New York State Bluebird Society, they have trails along routes that could go miles, literally, 50 miles or something like that. And the boxes will be on the sides of the road, and they'll pull up to that, check that, and then drive another, and then like a couple or a person will take 10 miles of that or whatever it is. They'll check those and so on. Those are really hard to maintain because there's so many boxes. It's such a long distance, and a lot of times they fall in disrepair or you get overgrowth, get shrubbery and things or trees that are growing. So it takes a lot of work, and you're talking like mostly almost all the time volunteers. And if somebody starts a trail, and they're checking their trail and then they move or whatever. If they can't find somebody to take it over, that bluebird trail kind of falls by the wayside, unfortunately. But the good thing is the bluebirds and the tree swallows, neither one of them are an endangered species. So it's just a nice thing to do. I always look at it as a bluebird society or a club. It was something to get involved in and to do some good work and then to enjoy the birds. But it isn't like if we didn't do this, oh, they disappear. Oh my, where are they going to go? Um, that's another program. As far as how when the bluebirds were when there were a lot of them popular, and then when there were less, it's got a lot to do with humans. Clearing of the forest made habitat for them, and then when those farms were abandoned, then they grew back, and then that habitat was lost because they don't go in the woods. They like fields and ecotones and edges and things like that. So I mean that's a whole nother program that shows the history of the bluebird, and how the populations went up and down, and how some people miss them and like to see them because they're a pretty bird and their little song is sweet, and that's kind of why these clubs exist.
And by the way, he's asking if we decide to set up a bluebird trail, do we have to register it with the New York State Bluebird Society or anything?
Don't have to register it, but definitely it's a great idea to become a member and then send in your results. They want to know all over the state of New York. And most of the bluebird trails and most of the people that are in the New York Bluebird Society all live upstate. There's very few down around here. So most of them are upstate. That's where it's really very vital up there. And that's why it's good to have people on Long Island like Peggy was, and now she's president of Audubon. She had asked me if I wanted to move into the spot that she vacated. I said, sure, I'll do it. So that's why I did it. But like I said, it's
On the bottom.
yeah, people like to see the birds. It's something you can do in your own backyard to get this really cool looking bird, and they're sweet. And I think that's really the main thing. But like I said, they're not endangered. If you didn't do it, it's not like if there weren't boxes up, oh my God, where are they gonna go? So that's not the issue. It's just people like to see them and they feel more connected to nature when they do it.
I just put the website of New York State Bluebird Society on the chat,
Mm,
nysbs.org. And yeah,
excellent.
not only is it a great organization, but they also, if you want to set up a trail, they have great instructions of how to build the boxes and all the specs and all that stuff. So it's an excellent resource. Oh, and then, okay, Nat is asking, some of our boxes have a wire mesh on the bottom. Is that okay with or without a wire mesh on the bottom?
In other words, yeah, there's a wire mesh with a little space underneath it. It's usually, yeah, mounted, and then yeah, that's for like it doesn't really matter to have that. I think that sometimes when you buy a box, they put all this, stuff you don't really need in there. And I find them to be actually hard to clean out because you'll get the stuff that collects underneath the it's hardware cloth basically. And it's hard to get that stuff out. So I prefer a box with just the wooden, I guess it helps with moisture getting in there or something, and it'll settle on the bottom. But I've seen those boxes, like I said, they're kind of a pain in the neck to clean out. So if you have it, that's fine. But if you can pull the screen out, you could do that. If make it easier for you, you can put it back in. It's not an issue. We don't have blowfly larvae around really. I think maybe down south they're worse, but up here I don't think I've ever seen a blowfly larva. Which sometimes the blowfly will lay eggs, and then the caterpillar or whatever you want to call it will go in there and attach themselves to the young and suck their blood or something.
Uh,
Little larva.
so two more questions. Eric is asking what percentage of bluebirds live in boxes versus natural cavities?
Yeah, I don't know that. It's not really a matter of living, but nesting. Yeah, they don't. A lot of times they call a bluebird house. It gives the impression they live there. It's like they go there all around, and then they decide to make a nest there. When the nest is done, they keep going back there. Well, they will go in a box in the winter to roost. You can get several bluebirds in a box. I think there's a picture of like you count there's like 12 of them in there. And that if they're able to get stay warm in there and that helps. But it's always good to clean the boxes out before the winter comes. When the nest is done and they're not using the box anymore, it's a good idea to just scrape everything out and just leave it nice and clean. So when they want to, if they want to use it as a roosting box, they can. There's room in there for several birds to go in there.
Right. And also, and Nat's asking what direction the boxes, the opening should face.
Yeah, I never really pay much attention to that. I mostly just make sure that they're facing a shrub or a tree that when the young or the first flight is usually weak. So you want them to be able to fly to something. When they look out of the cavity or the hole, they want to be able to fly to something to get off the ground. They don't you don't want them ended up on the ground. So that's a good thing to do. Other than that, I don't know that there's a huge difference.
Well,
I've never done experiments with it. Hey, Peggy, I don't even know. Is it south
well, I know
facing
the prevailing thought is to have them, the opening facing away from the prevailing wind, which
prevailing wind?
west, coming from the west, so you want them facing northeast. But it does, again, like you say, Tom, it does. I've had them facing all different directions, and it
It
doesn't
doesn't, yeah, it's
doesn't.
not like, oh, yeah, it also, just because it's facing in the prevailing wind, is this little hole, it's not like this wind's just rushing in there, so it's not a big issue.
Exactly, and you talk about them having to be near a tree so that when they first fly out. But the picture that you showed of the field at Mishomic, I mean, I still get confused about whether it's best to put them out in the open in a field like that. You want them away from the brushy areas. If they're too close to the brushy areas, that's where the um, house wrens hang out. Is you don't want them too close to brush if you can
Right,
avoid it. And that's
exactly. Yeah, it's usually a tree and then no brush, forget that. But yeah, like there's always some trees in a field. And if you're gonna put the boxes up, it doesn't have to be. I mean, we've got boxes, there's nothing around, it'll be fine. But if it happens to be a tree, you can put it near the tree, not right against the tree, so that when they fly out, they can fly to that tree. And then the adults oftentimes will use that tree to hawk insects from. So they do need posts or these like places to hawk the insects. They just kind of sit there and look down and then drop down on the insect, kind of like an owl does on a mouse. So yeah, it's definitely not right up against a tree or near that close to a tree, a small tree, something like that. And we've always tried to kind of face it towards that. But if there's nothing around and it's a good spot to put the box at 100 yards apart, stick them in there. It's not a big issue.
great. And Eric is asking, any last recommendations for a group of newbie volunteers setting up a bluebird trail? I think they should get in touch with you, is what they should
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm an ambassador
do. Yeah,
for the Bluebird. So definitely let me know, and I will meet with you to check out exactly where you want to do it. And then we go from there as far as the materials you need, how much money you have to put into it. You can do it. When I did the one in Shelter Island, I got all my stovepipe from the dump free. I used hardware cloth and this I don't know what it's called. It's a rolled metal of some sort with these holes in it, and it's pliable. I don't know what it's called. I can't remember the name of it. And you buy that, and you put that on a pole that you can get them at you can get poles at Home Depot or Lowe's or something real cheap. Have them cut 8 foot lengths. Put them a couple of feet in the ground. You put the this metal stuff on there, whatever it's called. It's like a ribbon. Put your hardware cloth on that, and then you take your stovepipe, you cut it in sections, you bend the metal inward, and it kind of rests on the hardware cloth, and then you're done in the box. You mount the box, and then away you go. So you can do it that way, or you can do it other ways, or you can spend the money and get like the Cadillac of Bluebird nest boxes by doing a 4x4 with an urban guard and any kind of box you want. Oh yeah, and the wood should be a 3/4 inch thick for insulation on the box. But like I said, I've got another whole other program that goes through all this stuff. But if you're interested just from this, definitely let me know. Get in touch with me, and we'll go from there.
I just put, I hope it's okay. I just put your email on the chat. So it's
Absolutely.
birdspeak@aol.com.
Yep.
Birdspeak@aol.com.
Right.
Reach out to Tom, or you can reach out to us at North Fork Audubon, info
Hmm.
at Fork Audubon. And Marjorie is asking, what is the bluebird population on the North Fork? And by the way, I had no idea until tonight that there's all the bluebird boxes at the 4-H club there in Riverhead. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. There's quite a few there. Bill, Bill was like, I tell you, Bill was a dynamo. Um, he became the president of the, I think it was it was the president of the New York Bluebird Society, and he was just, that was his mission, to get as many bluebird boxes and trails on Long Island as possible. He was just unbelievable what he did.
He
And
held
then
his,
when he went down to North Carolina, he became the president down there for a couple of years as interim, and now he's not doing that anymore. But just those are the kind of people that really go. Bill was one of them.
any other questions? Yes, Bill Zidek is missed here. He was just the best ambassador. He just was amazing.
Oh yeah, yeah. He
Yeah.
was and he remains a force down there in North Carolina with all the stuff that he does, and it's just one of the greatest men I've ever met.
Yeah, he's a good man. But and you also are a great ambassador. So we all should feel free to reach out to you, Tom, because I know we
Absolutely.
all the time. So
And this lasted long enough.
I think it's perfect. Yeah,
Everybody got their money's worth.
money's worth. We're just an hour. And when and what is the next bird talk? The next bird talk. Oh, well, the next bird talk, Michael, you might have missed it. It's March 28th. We're having another Zoom meeting about ospreys with Marina from Group for the East End. It's on our website. All of our programs are on northforkaudubon.org, and hopefully you guys are all on our email list, and you'll get the information. So anyway, with that, I think you're getting lots of thank yous, Tom, and
Oh, good.
fantastic, really
Thanks,
great.
Tom.
Well,
Thank
you're
you.
very welcome, and thanks for joining in.
All right.
Good
Have a good
night.
evening, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Good night,
night.
everybody.
Thank you, Tom.
Bye.
Steve, I see you.
Thank you.